let me do some introductions first. Jay Swoboda, welcome back to the show. Jay, we appreciate you being here, real estate developer. Also Natalie Self, Beyond Housing, Strategic Initiatives Manager, and Todd Swanstrom, welcome back once again from the University of Missouri St. Louis Public Policy Center. Okay, so is this TOD thing just kind of an old idea made new again, turned into a buzzword and really doesn't mean much, or is there something real going on here when it comes to transportation, our public transit system having a real impact on our built environment?
Well, I think it's an old classic idea. We had transit-oriented development. In fact, all development is transit-oriented way because you have to have a way to get around, right? Highways create their own form of development. So we're trying to go back to the kind of density and placemaking and clustering that existed in St. Louis 50 and 100 years ago when we had the trolley system.
Yeah, taking the car out of development is going to take a lot of work, and you can count on peak oil and you can count on personal preferences and increasing costs, but at the end of the day, people really enjoy the independence that comes with owning a car and driving a car. Until there's an incentive or a reason, and to avoid that, people are going to continue to choose that. So we have to provide a great experience, and I think Metro does that for the most part. But we also have to provide a lot of options, a lot of better frequency, and better locations and more locations to expand the footprint of Metro.
So if we're waiting for that real incentive to happen, we should just let's turn off the lights. There's really no point right now. Is there a reason to try to make this happen?
Well, one of the things that's interesting is that there are places in the region where people really do rely on transit. So we work in the Normandy School District. It's a primarily underserved areas, and folks really are relying on Metrolink and buses. And when we started to have the TOD conversation with them, Todd knows because he was a part of it, it had to look a little bit different than the TOD conversations that we may have as people that are familiar with transit-oriented development on the East Coast and the West Coast. So a lot of people see it as purely a utilitarian tool. And so then the question was, well, why would I want to live close to it? When we just assumed that housing and a variety of mixed use, is a piece of it. So we really then had to look at, okay, if we're going to talk about transit-oriented development, let's talk about transit as a piece of a much larger place and a much larger neighborhood. So there are people in the region that are using it. We just need to shift the conversation a little bit about what we can put around it and how we can make that work, I think.
I think what's so interesting about doing TOD in a more disadvantaged community is it can really be an anti-poverty strategy. If you can have a family that has to have 2 cars to get to work and they can dispense with 1 car, they can save about $8,000 a year. That's how much it costs just to own a basic car. So that is a real anti-poverty strategy. Not only that, but you get all sorts of other benefits. You get reduced traffic congestion, right? So all the people who ride cars ought to give everybody who moves into a TOD like 10 cents every day, right? Because it's saving them a little bit of time. It leads to cleaner air. It reduces development costs. I'm sure you can talk about that. If you can dispense with a few parking spots, that's a big deal to a developer, right?
Yeah, we've recently passed an ordinance in the city that the Vanguard Committee kind of led the way on, but essentially to eliminate the requirement that you have a 1-for-1 parking space per unit. So if you can provide bike parking, you can reduce your parking requirements. So that was a zoning change that the mayor got behind. Planning zoning was supported. So we've started to move toward incentivizing development because we realized that having 500 parking spots for 500 apartments didn't make sense. Now there's only a couple spots in downtown St. Louis, which is where I do my work with Spinnaker St. Louis, and it's the 8th and Pine station and the 6th and Washington station. Within 500 feet of there are thousands of office buildings, there's hundreds of apartments, if not thousands of apartments, and there's retail. So from a development perspective, those are 2 really vibrant spots where there's mixed uses going on, people living, working, playing, doing things. But then there's also the other more dense stations like BJC, Central West End Station, where it's an institutional. A ton of people come for work, services, but then we start to look at the other stations in the network and speaking specifically to Metrolink, and there's a lot of opportunity around them still. So if we're looking at TOD, the opportunities exist. The question is from a development perspective, how can I attract people to that? Because in St. Louis, that's not an attractive thing for most individuals. It's not something that they really value, or they're not going to pay a premium in rent. They're not going to pay a premium in retail, lease. So what's the benefit?
And we have some development tools that we're starting to experiment with, because one of the things that the video just talked about is how do we make housing affordable, right, around transit-oriented development. So Beyond Housing works with a partner organization. It's our 24/1 community land trust. And the way that a land trust works is that they purchase the land under the building, and so that allows us, in the plan around the Rock Road, to have some affordable housing for students at UMSL, but then also for seniors who are aging and can't age in their home and maybe don't want to have a car. So then they can use the MetroLink. So we're starting to experiment with some tools that can make it affordable and can, draw folks in that really want to use transit but aren't that millennial age necessarily.
I think in St. Louis, I say the word density is a 4-letter word, right? We like to live and spread out with lots of greenery around us, and surely a lot of us like that. But if you say, do you like walkability? Do you like to be able to get up in the morning and walk out and go to a cafe and have a cup of coffee with your friend? Do you like to be able to see a movie without getting in your car? Would you like to do? And the answer is yes. So this idea of placemaking and mixing uses and density, we have to get used to it. The problem in St. Louis is land is cheap. And we are on this flat plain, and you can develop in any direction. Most cities have a desert or a mountain or an ocean or something that blocks it and pushes the development back toward the center. Eventually we're going to get there. I think the suburban frontier is going to end someday. It's going to slowly, we're seeing with gas prices and other things, we're seeing that people are going to have to be more mindful, because it's not transportation. The real topic today, Casey, should not be transportation. It should be accessibility. The purpose of transportation is to access things. We don't want to just move people around from point A to point B. We want people to have access to the things that make for a quality life. And this is clearly the direction to go in the future.
Well, we're all talking about this urban utopia. I'm guessing every one of us drove here tonight. You said, what's the benefit? What is the benefit?
Well, the benefit is that when I want to, I can catch the 820 73 at Sydney and 12th, and I can take it down to this convention center, the Civic Center MetroLink, catch the train just as it's arriving, hopefully, and then take it 3 stops to 8th and Pine, walk to my office. 17 minutes later, I'm at my office. It would have taken me 10 to 12 minutes to drive. Park, I would have likely gone down, gotten a coffee, gone in. I would have had but I would have been in my own world. Instead, I get a chance to kind of interact with my community. And we have this aloofness that we've created through social media, but also through the personal automobile. When you get out of your car, you start to interact with people. You start to interact with people, ideas happen. This whole, creative community, it happens when you interact with people. And you don't interact with people by sitting in your car,
When you're in one of those metal contraptions, you see everybody else as an obstacle, not as.
Right.
But when you're in a public space and you see other people, that's kind of interesting. You're watching, it's people watching.
More
right?
accessibility, if you will.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
other people. All right.